You're listening to the WrestleHavoc Podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. We talk all that goes on in the realm of WWE and AEW every week. And now, here's your host, the one that will give you a reality check on pro wrestling, Flamin' Ricky Darius. This is the WrestleHavoc Podcast.
What's up, everybody? It is Flamin' Ricky Darius right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, here to review AEW Collision from July 29th, 2023. This was a stacked frickin' show. Collision absolutely blew Dynamite out of the frickin' water. Not only that, this was probably the best episode of Collision that we've had in the show's short history, ever since it debuted back on June 17th with the return of CM Punk. This was, in my opinion, a pay-per-view quality show. In a way, it kind of felt that way. The audience was definitely invested in what they were watching, especially in the main event. Of course, we had the ladder match with Andrade El Idolo taking on Buddy Matthews in a ladder match for the Mask of Andrade. And, of course, we had the main event with FTR, yes, the current AEW World Tag Team Champions, defending their tag team titles against the winners of the Blind Eliminator Tournament, the unlikely duo of Adam Cole and Mr. Maxwell Jacob Friedman, the AEW World Champion himself, MJF. That match was absolutely freaking phenomenal. But the bigger story is that MJF and Adam Cole are still on the same page. No, they did not do the turn on this show. And you know what? I'm glad that they did not have Adam Cole, or MJF, I should say, turn on Adam Cole. If you think about it, this is the best direction to go for this particular storyline and this whole feud. Because at the end of the day, once the turn happens, it's going to make Adam Cole into a bigger star, and MJF is going to look more like a bastard heel than he already is. That's all I'm going to say about that, but I will explain later on this review. Phenomenal show, man. We also had, of course, CM Punk. Yes, Mr. CM Punk. He finally reveals, after 5-6 weeks of Collision, he finally reveals what's in the red bag, and it's none other, and it was pretty obvious from the debut episode of Collision, that what's in the red bag is his AEW World Championship that he never lost. Yes, it's the AEW World Championship that he won, beating Jon Moxley this past September, or I should say last September, at All Out, but unfortunately relinquished it. Not only did an injury, but the obvious shit that everybody knows, the media scrum incident and the fight that he had with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, with, of course, Larry being involved as well. But nonetheless, this was a phenomenal Dynamite, or Collision, I should say. Dynamite was fucking trash. Looking back at it, Dynamite was a trash show. I know I said, the show wasn't bad, but it wasn't really, a Dynamite-esque show. Looking back, it was not a good episode of Dynamite. This Collision show completely blew Dynamite out of the freaking water. And you know what? I hope it stays that way, because Collision is literally my favorite AEW show right now. Not to say Dynamite is a bad show every week, but I honestly feel like Dynamite has kind of lost its luster a little bit. It kind of, I don't want to say lost its purpose, but like Dynamite, it's not a very hit or miss show, because most weeks it's a very good show and the matches that we get are phenomenal. It's just not the same as it was 2 years ago. I feel like Collision has taken that place, in my opinion. Collision is just on a different fucking level. You may not see it in the ratings, but you can definitely see it in the show. The show has more of a focus in story-esque storylines, if that makes any sense, because we all know nowadays people want story after the whole success of the Bloodline that is still going on over in WWE right now. And on Collision, we got exclusive stories that are happening only on Collision, and that is what you really want if you want a B-level show. But in terms of creative, I don't view this show as a B-level show at all. If anything, this show was basically an A show. Like, Collision to me is like the AEW A show now, not because of the ratings, but in terms of the quality of the show. That's just my opinion on the situation, but nonetheless, this was a phenomenal show. I loved this show. Everything from top to bottom, the ladder match, the CM Punk and Ricky Starks segment. We're going to be having Ricky Starks versus CM Punk next week on Collision for the real, and that's what they're calling it, the real World Championship. So if you think about it, it's the unofficial World Championship of Collision. And I know a lot of people are going to bring up, oh my God, you guys were complaining when they unveiled the World Heavyweight title in WWE. They basically did the same thing on Collision. It's not the same. It's not the same. Don't make stupid comparisons on social media, please. But I'll talk about why the quote-unquote real World Championship makes total sense and the payoff down the line, because with CM Punk having his AEW World Championship, clearly they're going to be leading towards a third match between CM Punk and MJF, which is what we've all wanted and we should have gotten last year, but due to some bullshit circumstances, we did not get it. But I'm going to talk about all this and much more right here on the Collision Review. Before I get on with all this craziness regarding AEW Collision, of course, make sure to like and subscribe to the WrestleHavoc Podcast right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the friggin' referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Of course, if you guys had missed it, the AEW Dynamite review is up on the channel. Of course, I talk about what was a nothing episode of AEW Dynamite. If you compare last week's episode of Dynamite to this week's episode of Dynamite, clearly the Blood and Guts Dynamite was damn near a perfect show. This episode of Dynamite, although it wasn't a bad show, now looking back, I kind of think it wasn't really a bad show. It's just one of those weeks where AEW Dynamite just doesn't really deliver anything. And that is the biggest problem. And if you compare it to the Collision review that I'm about to cover, clearly this show was 10 times better than the show we got this past Wednesday on TBS. But if you guys haven't checked out the AEW Dynamite review, the link will be in the description below. Also, the Raw review is up on the channel as well. I talk about Seth Rollins and Finn Balor signing the contract for SummerSlam, which I thought was a great closing segment for the show. WWE is clearly looking at Judgment Day as one of the top factions in WWE right now, of course, behind the Bloodline, and they're going to bet a lot on the Judgment Day once the Bloodline storyline officially ends. It's going to be a long-term investment when it comes to WWE, and honestly, of course, SummerSlam is next Saturday, so that's going to be awesome as well. But if you guys haven't checked out the Raw review, the link will also be in the description below. Another thing, I know SmackDown was yesterday. I didn't do a SmackDown review, as you guys see on the channel. I will come to you guys with a SmackDown review hopefully tomorrow. Tomorrow for me is going to be very, very, very busy. So I'm either thinking about hopefully I can bust out the SmackDown review maybe early in the morning. But if not, I'll give you guys the SmackDown review late at night, because it's going to be a very, very, very busy Sunday for me. So yeah, I was kind of all over the place this week. I kind of uploaded reviews a little bit late, but hopefully I stop with that, thankfully. But I want to really get back on track with things, because I haven't really been getting on track with a lot of things just this whole week. So I got to get really back on track with things. But nonetheless, the SmackDown review will be up tomorrow, whether if it's the morning or at night. We're going to have to wait and see. But for now, let's focus on AEW Collision. Collision kicks off with the ladder match for the Mask of Andrade with, of course, Mr. Andrade El Idolo taking on the House of Black's Buddy Matthews. This was a phenomenal ladder match. Everything about this match was phenomenal. It screams, the type of opener that you would want in a wrestling show. Having a ladder match open up a weekly wrestling show is, I don't want to say weird, but very rare if you really think about it. You would see in major pay-per-views, for example, like a WrestleMania, a Money in the Bank ladder match would open that show like maybe a couple years prior. But when it comes to like a weekly TV show, you don't see that. But this match was everything that it needed to be. Of course, as I stated on earlier in this review, Collision is more of the story-driven show. Not to say Dynamite is not a story-driven show, because there's clearly story on Dynamite. If you're one of those people that think AEW does not have any story whatsoever, clearly you are not watching the fucking shows. But Collision is more of a story-heavy show than Dynamite, and this is the prime example of this. Clearly, the feud with Andrade El Idolo and, of course, the House of Black is not over. They've been teasing a future match with Andrade and Malachi Black, which most likely will happen at Allin. I definitely see that match happening, because, again, that match is just going to be a fucking banger. I know AEW has a lot of bangers, but this is one of those examples where, that's going to be just an absolute fucking banger. But nonetheless, let's go through the match. Of course, Julia Hart is on the apron. Andrade goes immediately after Buddy Matthews. Buddy Matthews goes for a furious chop into the corner. Then he returns the favor, that being Andrade, and then both men exchange chops on each other. Andrade then clotheslines Buddy onto the outside. Andrade then jumps on the apron, but then Buddy catches the ankle. Andrade then jumps the ladder, and then he kicks Buddy, and then he climbs the ladder, which is basically placed on the outside. And he ends up hitting a moonsault on the outside on Buddy Matthews, which looked fucking awesome. Andrade then takes the ladders in the ring, and then both men go for a series of exchanging of strikes. Andrade goes for the three amigos, but once Andrade goes for the third amigo, what happens is Buddy escapes the third amigo, and we get a bunch of Eddie chants, of course, paying homage to the late Eddie Guerrero. Then once Buddy escaped the three amigos, he stomps on the hand of Andrade. He proceeds to pick up Andrade, but then Andrade escapes. We get a back elbow by Buddy Matthews, but runs into the ladder, landing on his spine, which looked absolutely brutal. Andrade then places the ladders on Buddy Matthews in the corner, and he runs into the ladder on Andrade. And what happens is Buddy sets up the ladder in the center, and then, of course, Buddy Matthews attends Doc Samson after that. So apparently, Buddy Matthews suffered an injury. We do not know what that injury is. We do not know if it's real or not, but we're going to have to wait and see. But once we're back from commercial break, Buddy Matthews is in control. He sends him to the ladder, and then he basically gets sent headfirst onto the announce table. Or he sends, I should say, Andrade headfirst onto the announce table. I believe it was either Buddy or Andrade. I completely forgot. My notes got fucked up. Buddy places the announce table in between the apron and the announce table. After that, both exchange a series of shots on the apron. Andrade picks up Buddy Matthews. Buddy Matthews escapes. Andrade goes for a back elbow, and both exchange elbows. And then Andrade tries to spear Buddy Matthews, and Buddy catches him. Now, I believe in this back elbow that I just mentioned, Andrade hit this fucking back elbow like crazy. It was an insane back elbow. Like, you could have easily seen a tooth fall out. Now, I don't think any tooth fell out, but that was a furious back elbow by Andrade. Buddy's on the apron. Andrade then tries to spear Buddy on the ladder, but instead Buddy counters with a DDT on the ladder, which looked brutal. Then Buddy takes out the ladder from under the ring. A table is placed in the corner. After that, he drives Andrade's head repeatedly on the table in the corner, and then Buddy climbs the ladder, but Andrade moves the ladder, dropping him down. Then Andrade goes for a furious back elbow. So this was the back elbow that I was talking about. So my apologies. I mentioned earlier that Andrade hit a back elbow. This was the furious back elbow that I was talking about because it's clearly in my notes. But this back elbow was fucking brutal. Like, he hit this back elbow, and you can just hear it. You can just hear it, and you could easily see, like, it looked like a tooth fell out, or I think it was, like, spit, whatever. That shit looked like it knocked out somebody's tooth. That was an insane spot right there. Buddy Matthews and later is on the ladder, placed in the center of the other ladder on the bottom rope. And then Andrade climbs the ladder on the outside. Buddy then is on his knees, and then he ends up going up, and both men exchange a series of elbows with one another. Then Andrade drives Buddy's head onto the ladder. And Andrade goes for a sunset flip powerbomb on the ladder on Buddy Matthews, because there was a ladder on the outside that was on the floor, and there was another ladder that was set on the ladder that was stood up also from the other end onto the bottom rope. So that was where the sunset flip powerbomb came from. Andrade then climbs the ladder in the center and goes to the ring. Buddy then pulls the ankle of Andrade. Andrade then lands into a knee by Buddy Matthews. Julia Hart has handcuffs, and this is where the match gets intense. She has handcuffs, and then they handcuff Andrade into the corner. Andrade is trapped. And then Julia Hart has the key. Buddy Matthews has a chair. And once Buddy Matthews had the chair, even though Andrade was handcuffed, he still did some offense here. He actually boot Buddy Matthews in the face, knocking him with the chair. After that, Andrade ends up getting the key because the boot actually resulted in Julia Hart getting so shocked that she dropped the key. And what happens is Andrade ends up freeing himself. Andrade goes back into the ring, and then Buddy gets trapped, and he gets handcuffed. So now he's the guy that's trapped. And then Andrade throws the key to the crowd, so Buddy has nowhere to go. Julia Hart, though, she's not stupid. She came prepared, and she got a series of bolt cutters. After that, Andrade climbs the ladder in the ring. She comes in, and she applies a sleeper on Andrade on the back of Andrade. So she hangs on Andrade while he's climbing the ladder. And what happens is Buddy ends up freeing himself. And what happens is Buddy comes to the ladder. Both men fight it out while, of course, Buddy is now up on the ladder. Julia Hart then is on the other side of the ladder, but she slaps Andrade repeatedly. And what happens is she pushes Julia Hart on Buddy through the ladder, and Andrade grabs the mask. And what happens is Andrade wins the ladder match after pushing Julia Hart off, landing on Buddy Matthews on the table in the corner. And the match ends. This was a phenomenal match. I enjoyed the match. This was not your crazy ladder match that you normally would see on any given wrestling show. This is not your Hardy's, Dudley's, Edge and Christian type of ladder match. Nowhere near that. But everything, all the spots that they did, they ended up mattering. And a lot of the spots that happened in the match really played into the story of the match. Because the story of the match was the entirety of the lineage of the Mask of Andrade. That was the story that they were telling. And Andrade pulled this ladder match off great. The sunset flip powerbomb spot was awesome. The back elbow in the match. Buddy Matthews was great. But this feud does not end. And, of course, this feud ends with the leader of the House of Black, that being Malachi Black. And most likely we're going to be seeing a one-on-one match with Andrade and Malachi Black. Hopefully, cross my fingers, at All In. Not All Out, All In at Wembley Stadium. If you really want to stack All In at Wembley Stadium up, because they sold a lot of tickets for that Wembley show. They sold like damn near 80,000 tickets for that show as of right now. If you want to really stack that card, you damn as well better give us Andrade versus Malachi Black at All In. Period. That's all you need to do. But nonetheless, this was a phenomenal match. Miro is backstage with, of course, Mr. Tony Schiavone. And Tony Schiavone mentions to Miro that he senses that there's a battle coming soon. And what does that imply? All of a sudden, Aaron Solo attacks him with the chair. And as soon as Aaron Solo attacks him with the chair, you already know who the fuck Miro is feuding with. And what happens is Miro then hits him with the chair, and Miro stands tall. Don't you dare fucking tell me that Miro, his first official feud back in AEW, he's going to be fucking feuding with QTV and QT Marshall. I hope to God, I pray to God in heaven that we don't get that. I want Miro in a legitimate blood feud. I want Miro in a legitimate feud that actually matters. I don't want to see him fucking feud with QTV. QTV is one of the worst things about AEW right now. I don't give a shit what anybody says. They fucking suck. Okay? Miro shouldn't be given that. Okay? That's just my opinion. After that, Darby Allin is in action. And this was something I actually completely forgot at the beginning of this show. Talking about everything that happened on this Collision show. Darby Allin actually wrestled on this show. But we did not know who his opponent was. And we found out who his opponent was. It was Mr. Kazeninare. It was fucking Minoru Suzuki. Yes, you heard it right. We got Darby Allin versus New Japan's Minoru Suzuki on free TV. Holy shit. That was insane. That came definitely unexpected. I didn't expect that whatsoever. But we got Darby Allin versus Minoru Suzuki. This was a great match. You know, it didn't really last long, of course, especially with the 2-hour time frame, but nonetheless, this was a great match. Darby Allin, with the amount of time that they had, they got all their shit in. They got all their shit in this match. Darby Allin looked phenomenal. Suzuki beat the shit out of Darby as well in this match. But, of course, Darby Allin ended up getting the win. Darby goes immediately after Suzuki. He goes for the elbow suicida, but the match doesn't officially begin. He sends Suzuki to the barricade, and then he grabs a chair. He takes Suzuki down, and then he ends up hitting an overhand chop. And then we get a running shotgun dropkick off the apron. He then sends Suzuki back into the ring, and then once he sends Suzuki back into the ring, the bell officially rings. Then after that, we get a cover into near fall by Darby. Suzuki gets up on his feet. Darby goes for repeated right hands. Suzuki goes for a right hand. Darby is on the apron, but then Suzuki goes for an armbar on the apron. And then we get a running kick on the apron by Suzuki on Darby. He then sends Darby to the barricade. Once we're back into the ring, he hits a boot into the corner, and then he hits a kick once again, or I should say Suzuki hits a kick once again, and then we get a cover into near fall. Suzuki then rips off the tape of the ribs of Darby Allin, and once we're back from commercial break, Suzuki is in control, and he is choking out Darby Allin. After he's choking out Darby, we get a knee by Suzuki, we get a roll-up by Darby, and we get a near fall. Darby then basically looms at Suzuki after a chop, and he just looks at him like just straight, like just pissed off. These men were going to fucking go to war when it came to these chops. And Suzuki drops, of course, Darby after one chop. Both men continue to chop one another. Darby goes for the code red and the pin, but we get a near fall. He goes for the coffin splash into the corner, but Suzuki applies a sleeper. After that, we get a backdrop by Darby after a pile driver attempt by Suzuki in which he escaped. We then get a springboard coffin splash by Darby, and then he ends up going to the top. And what happens is he goes for the coffin drop. And you think all is said and done, but not with Suzuki. He goes for the coffin drop, and what happens? He gets caught in the sleeper. As soon as he goes for that coffin drop, Suzuki was like, not today, bitch. And he goes for the sleeper, but what happens is Darby rolls through, and he basically takes Suzuki's shoulders down and gets the win and escapes Minoru Suzuki. And after that, Darby Allin, of course, wins the match. And then Christian Cage and Luchasaurus is in the ring. The real TNT champion, Christian Cage. Yeah, we all know he won that title. Talks about how he has, a lot of other things going on. For example, Swerve Strickland and AR Fox. But he can't be distracted for him and their TNT title. This title has been more prestigious than ever. Which, you can't agree. I mean, before Christian Cage, the TNT title was an absolute dog shit shambles. And it means more than it ever did. And he's no longer qualified to be the TNT champion. And you will send him back to the mall or Hot Topic or whatever. So we'll see you soon, Mr. Darby Allin. Overall thoughts on the Suzuki and Darby match. I'm glad that we actually got this match. Darby and Suzuki, bro, they got great chemistry. I don't want to say they're cut from the same cloth, but I will go out on a limb and say this. They're cut from the same cloth with the fact that they just love brutality. And they mesh perfectly well in the ring with one another, and that is what I loved about this match. Not only that, of course, when it comes to Darby Allin, he will be challenging for the TNT title at All Out because, of course, he won the Royal Rampage on Rampage, I believe it was last week. So he's granted a TNT title shot against Luchasaurus or Christian Cage. It's really Luchasaurus, but do I see Darby Allin winning the TNT championship? Honestly, I do not know. We're going to have to wait and see, but it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. After that, we got the current Ring of Honor World Television Champion, Samoa Joe, taking on Gravity. Gravity, of course, has been showcased on AEW TV twice. Twice. He's been on Death Before Dishonor, which was the ROH pay-per-view this past Friday. And also, he's been showcased on AEW Dynamite Wrestling Pack, which was not really that good of a match to begin with. This match was pretty entertaining. Didn't last long whatsoever. Gravity dances with Joe, and that was basically a common occurrence throughout the majority of this whole match. He goes for shots to the back of Joe. Gravity dances once again, and basically Joe claps and kicks him. We got a Hurricane Rana by Gravity on Joe. Joe regains control. Gravity off the top rope has Joe walking off. I always loved the walk-off by Samoa Joe. Hilarious. It never gets old. And then Joe goes for the Muscle Buster, and we get a cover, and Samoa Joe wins the match. Nothing special. What's going to happen with Samoa Joe and CM Punk? I don't know. I've always believed that there was supposed to be a program set with Samoa Joe and CM Punk. But for the past 2 or 3 weeks, we really haven't seen that. Who knows? It's going to be very interesting. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see who Punk wrestles at All Out or All In. Well, actually, no, both All In and All Out. Because right now, he is the quote-unquote real world champion. How are they going to build to 2 matches with CM Punk? We do know he's going to be wrestling on the Wembley show. He basically stated it on this promo. But is he going to be at All Out? I assume yes, because it is in Chicago. Speaking of CM Punk, we got the CM Punk segment. This was, besides the MJF and Adam Cole stuff, the best thing on the show. And I completely forgot to basically add the screen of CM Punk. Jesus Christ, I fucking forgot. It is what it is. Let's just talk about this whole thing. CM Punk, he has the red bag and talks about how there's been a lot of things going on in AEW. Before he talks about the bag, Hartford, Connecticut, how are we doing tonight? It's been, of course, weeks of rotation travel, and he showed up 2 hours ago. But he will never let any one of you down because he will always make his towns and show up for the people in the building. There's lots of things going on in AEW. Nah, let's scratch that. There's been a lot of things going on Collision that no one really wants to meet or talk about. No one talks about these things. The first thing he wants to talk about is Wembley Stadium. For fuck's sakes, finally. He is, of course, the first wrestler to mention Wembley Stadium. Yes, he is. On TV, absolutely. CM Punk is going to go to England. Is he going to go to England? Is he going to be wrestling at Wembley? Basically, he gave you the answer, yes. Maybe, well, we'll know by the end of the night. Maybe that's what this bag is for. Ricky Starks also has a lot to do with what's in the bag. He's beaten him twice. He's not even mad that, about him beating him twice. He's just a little disappointed. Twice in a tag match, but he's more pissed for Darby Allin. Of course, can you take a win knowing that you're just a cheater, Mr. Ricky Starks? As for what the bag goes, or as for the bag, it goes like this. It isn't really the fact that he's been carrying it around, but he's been left holding that bag. That's a lot of responsibility, or it's about responsibility. Sometimes you got to wake up and do things you don't want to do because you're the responsible adult in the room. Oh shit, shots fired. So, what's in the bag? He thinks Ricky is a cheater, and of course, he has mistaken his kindness for weakness. And when he came back holding the bag, he said he wasn't going to be nice anymore. And he's right. He's not going to be nice anymore. And this is him not being nice anymore. And the truth doesn't care if you're nice. The truth doesn't care if you're right or wrong. In this case, he is right, and he is the champion. And then he pulls out the AEW World Championship that he never lost from the red bag. And he says he is the real world champion. This title has his name on it, not because he deserved it, and we've heard this before, not because he deserved it, but because he's earned it. No one has pinned or submitted him. This belt is still covered in his blood from last September when he beat Jon Moxley for it. And since then, no one has beaten him for this belt. It has his name and blood on it. Now it's got its symbol on it. And he puts the belt on the mat, and he grabs a spray paint, and he spray paints the belt, the main plate, with a giant X. And if you notice, the center of the X is covering the E. Of course, what does the E in AEW represent? The Elite. Could we be implying something? I mean, I know a lot of people are speculating on Twitter, but I don't know. I may be wrong, and I may be bullshitting y'all. But, that is a large sense of semblance right there. Of course, the X is the giant straight edge symbol. So, of course, he spray paints the belt, and he says, this X represented CM Punk since 1997. This X is the foundation of where he built his wrestling career from. This X means he's straight edge, and straight edge means he's better than you. He used that line many, many, many years ago in Ring of Honor. This title is his, and it belongs on Collision, and it isn't stolen like his catchphrase. He is the real world's champion. And then Ricky Starks comes out. Ricky Starks comes out and he says, before he goes further, we're going to witness my real entrance. And he goes back and he tells production to play his music and for the people that they should act like you just didn't see me, all right? So he goes back, he makes his entrance, and then he cuts his promo in the ring with CM Punk. It was a great old story he told there, says Starks. To be honest, though, with you, Ricky's kind of sold on gold right now. And the way he sees it, regardless on how he wins, he would have done, that being Punk, would have done the exact same thing. So he beat him before you could ever bite him, pal. So what you have on your shoulder really belongs to me, says Ricky Starks. He feels like he owns that. Whatever he has, it's his, because he's beaten him twice, and that's more than anyone can say. The way he's standing here right now, not only he's the real world's champion, but he is the face of Collision. And then Punk asks if he is the face of Collision, or are you the face of cheating? Did you beat me twice, or did the referees beat me twice? Then Ricky replies he would have Stevie Wonder as his referee, and he'd still beat him. So the way he sees it, it's a win, and a win is a win. So that belongs to one and only absolute Ricky Starks. It belongs to moi, and it belongs to the man with a plan. And then Punk replies, that sounds like Ricky wants a title shot. And then Ricky screams, yes, I deserve a title shot. And then we get, of course, Ricky's title chants by the audience. You got to love this crowd in Hartford. He thinks he owes a big assist. I was about to say asset. He owes a big assist to 2 referees. He doesn't blame them, but if he wants a shot at the title, he needs extra eyeballs, a special referee. And Ricky says he's fine with that because he knows he doesn't have any friends around here. So if you got to dig in your past, just like, Julio De Niro or Dave Prazak, or you got to go up to Stanford, and then the crowd gets, oh, after he said Stanford, because clearly when a wrestler mentions Stanford, you know what they're talking about. I don't have to explain it to you either. And he gets somebody, whoever it is, he does not care. Because if he did it once, he can do it twice. Because absolute Ricky Starks is so damn nice. And then Punk, of course, he says, yes, I did make some phone calls. And yes, we might as well right now have a match. And the special referee is definitely somebody from my past. You really want a shot at the champ, asks CM Punk. And then Stark says he absolutely deserves a shot at the champ. And then Punk says he got it next week on Collision, and then Starks leaves. But Punk mentions who is the special guest referee. And then Tony Schiavone says on the microphone, the special guest referee is Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, who has not a long history, but he has a history with CM Punk over in Ring of Honor. So that's definitely interesting. I love how they're tying history over there. But it's official. Next week, we're going to be getting CM Punk versus Ricky Starks for the real World Championship next Saturday on Collision. Of course, that's going to be going head-to-head with the SummerSlam pay-per-view. Overall thoughts on this segment. This segment was phenomenal. Everything about this segment was everything that it needed to be. We finally found out what was inside the red bag, which from the first Collision, you already knew what the red bag had inside because, number one, it's a belt bag, and number two, it's the AEW World Championship. And the fact that CM Punk unveiled the AEW World Championship and mentioned that it was the title that he never lost, it creates for a very, very, very interesting and a very intriguing story. Because there is a long-term plan regarding on what they could do with this quote-unquote real World's Championship. It's a belt that is acknowledged, but at the same time not acknowledged, which I really, really, really like. And, in extent, it's technically Collision's World Championship. You know how Raw and SmackDown and NXT have their own championships? Of course, Raw has the World Heavyweight Championship, SmackDown has the Undisputed title, and NXT has the NXT Championship. It's very similar with Collision, Dynamite, and Ring of Honor. Dynamite has the AEW World Championship, Ring of Honor has the Ring of Honor World Championship, and Collision has basically the real World Championship, but the only difference is this championship is technically official, but at the same time it isn't really official. Because we all know who the real World Champion is. And the real World Champion, of course, is MJF, but right now MJF is doing his things with Adam Cole. And a lot of people are talking about who CM Punk is going to be wrestling at Allin in Wembley Stadium, or who CM Punk is possibly going to be wrestling at All Out in Chicago at the United Center. We do not know. But what we do know is the seeds were planted, and they've been planted for weeks now. The seeds have been planted for a third match between MJF and CM Punk. That is the biggest takeaway that I can give you. Do I think MJF and CM Punk should happen at All In or All Out? The answer is simple. Absolutely not. You wait until the end of 2024. And this is getting a little bit overlooked. Of course, you know how MJF always mentions the bidding war of 2024. That is a very, very, very real thing. Yes, MJF's contract with AEW is going to be up, I believe, January 1st of 2024. But I'm at the belief that he secretly signed an extension with AEW that we do not know about. I genuinely believe he secretly signed an extension with the company. Because if he hadn't signed an extension with the company, why would Tony Khan allow MJF to say all this shit on television? Get what I'm saying? But back to the topic at hand, and back to the topic with CM Punk and MJF. When it comes to CM Punk and MJF, people are saying that match should happen at Wembley, and that match should happen either at Wembley or at All Out. I get it. It's a big fight feel. It's in a stadium. Damn near 80,000 people in the UK. They'd love to get that match. And it's a great match for Allin, and it's a great match to sell that pay-per-view. But if you look at it from a creative standpoint, it just doesn't make any sense. The real story here is the bidding war of 2024. If you want to book MJF versus CM Punk, it should happen at the end of 2024 going into the beginning of the end of 2023 into the beginning of 2024. That's when it should happen. So the end of 2023 into the beginning, right in the beginning of 2024. Because what they're basically doing is doing what WWE did with CM Punk back in 2011 with MJF in 2023. They're doing the winter of MJF instead of the summer of Punk. They're going to give MJF his own summer of Punk, but in this case, it's going to be the winter of MJF. That is my prediction. And then they're going to be doing the unification match with MJF and CM Punk, whenever that could be. And it's going to be title versus title, the actual AEW World Championship versus the real AEW World Championship. A lot of interesting developments going on, but I do not think MJF and CM Punk should happen at Wembley. I think it should happen at the end of the year. You start building that match by the end of the year because it fits into the story of the bidding war of 2024. People don't understand that is going to be a major story for MJF, and it's going to make MJF into a bigger star than he already is. You may think the stuff that he's doing with Adam Cole's a little cheesy, and to an extent it is because he is the one holding the AEW World Championship. But the stuff with Adam Cole is just working flawlessly. It's just working. It's working perfectly. So honestly, you really shouldn't, be worried about MJF because MJF is not losing that world championship anytime soon. But when it comes to the real world championship with, CM Punk holding it, this is nothing but a positive because it gives Collision its own world championship. It's not an official world championship, but it gives Collision its own world championship. And it's not going to be a long-term thing, but it's going to benefit a lot of AEW wrestlers that are on the quote-unquote Collision roster because we're technically under a brand split. Not an official one, but a brand split in which you got stories that happen only on Dynamite, stories that happen only on Collision, and you have other stories, not a lot that kind of overlap. And I've been saying this for weeks and months. You got stories that also overlap from Dynamite to Collision. But overall, this was very good. Next week, we got Ricky Starks versus CM Punk for the Real World Championship. It is a great match. Of course, it's going to have an uphill battle because everybody's going to be watching SummerSlam next Saturday. And personally, myself, I'm going to be prioritizing SummerSlam over Collision. That's just the nature of the business. SummerSlam is one of the biggest shows of the year. I can't miss that shit. But that is not to say that I'm not excited about this. I'm clearly excited about this. And I love the direction that they're going with CM Punk. Everybody is concerned about the reactions that CM Punk is getting, but think about this. The role that CM Punk is playing right now is the role basically that John Cena was playing when he was a babyface. The type of babyface that gets that mixed reaction. You want to know why WWE never turned John Cena heel? And, looking back, it made total sense. It's because he was the top merch seller in the WWE. Why the fuck would you risk that? Now looking back, it made total sense. With CM Punk, he is a top merch seller, and he is a proven draw. You don't have to turn this guy heel. I would suggest that he would, but still, the role that CM Punk is playing, he's basically playing John Cena with the mixed reactions, and he's also playing Bret Hart in 1997. That's basically what I see when it comes to CM Punk, and that is not a bad thing. The direction with CM Punk, I'm enjoying a lot, and I'm enjoying this whole real World Championship that he unveiled for himself. Because, again, it is the title that he has never lost. So those are my thoughts on that. We got El Hijo del Vikingo and Action Andretti and Darius Martin taking on Bullet Club Gold, Juice Robinson and the Guns. Bullet Club Gold, of course, it's no secret, are becoming one of my favorite things on AEW TV, not only on Collision, throughout all of AEW. Bullet Club Gold has been phenomenal. Of course, they were in action last week. We had Jay White and Juice Robinson take on Action Andretti and Darius Martin. This week, we had Vikingo, Andretti, and Darius Martin take on Juice Robinson and the Guns. not going to go through a lot about this match. Vikingo did Vikingo stuff. Basically what happened was Andretti and Darius Martin were on the top, and they held up Vikingo, and Vikingo ends up hitting a senton. We get a dropkick and a German suplex combination by Action, Andretti, and Darius Martin, which looked phenomenal. Action then ends up picking up Colton Gunn, but then Colton escapes. He ends up regaining control, and then Colton is officially the legal man. And then the Guns end up hitting the 310 to Yuma. And we get a cover, and Bullet Club Gold win the match, and they celebrate with a big-ass pop-out of Mr. Switchblade Jay White, the leader of Bullet Club Gold. This was a great match. You know, I enjoyed it. Vikingo's great. I love how they showcase their luchadors. You know, one thing I will say about AEW this year is that AEW has been obsessed with utilizing a lot of luchadors like Bandito, Commander, Gravity, Vikingo, Roosh. Like, bro, they've been fucking going full-fledged with this Lucha Libre stuff, and I fucking love it. I absolutely fucking love it. We got Kiera Hogan taking on Mrs. Mercedes Martinez. Yes, Mercedes Martinez hasn't been on TV for I don't know how long. I believe she was dealing with an injury, but she came back recently, like a couple of months ago. But she hasn't been on TV for a long-ass time, so I'm glad that we got to see Mercedes Martinez back. Kiera Hogan, I believe she's been doing some stuff in ROH. I haven't really been following ROH, let's be honest. Who watches ROH? But she's been doing some stuff on ROH. This was a pretty good match with the time that they had. They worked really well. We got a boot by Martinez. She stomps after Hogan. We get a right hand by Mercedes. We then get a back elbow by Hogan. We then get a shotgun dropkick by Hogan. And then Martinez flattens Hogan face first to the mat. Later on, she applies, I believe what it looked like was a Romero special type submission, but it wasn't the actual Romero special. Mercedes ends up applying the submission, and she ends up winning the match. After the match, Chris Statlander, what happens is she keeps the submission on hold. And what happens is Chris Statlander comes in for the save. But what happens is Mercedes ends up taking the TBS title belt and hits her with the TBS title. And then Willow Nightingale ends up coming in for the save, and of course Mercedes Martinez retreats. Could this have some sort of sense of direction for Mercedes Martinez? I don't know. I hope so. Because I actually like Mercedes Martinez, and I feel like she really hasn't been doing a lot. Yeah, she was the ROH Women's Champion, but let's be honest with ourselves. What has she done with that ROH Women's title? Nothing. Athena has done more for the ROH Women's title than Mercedes Martinez. Let's be real here. After that, we got MJF and Adam Cole, the unlikely duo. We're better than you, baby. Taking on FTR, one of the best tag teams in the world, Dex Harwood and Cash Wheeler, for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. This match was fucking awesome. You can tell the crowd was invested in what they were watching. The crowd was booing FTR, and they were cheering Adam Cole and MJF. Any spot that they would do, whether it was a slam or, of course, the double clothesline, which is the most over thing in all of wrestling right now, the crowd would pop for. That's how good the dynamic of Adam Cole and MJF is. Again, I've been saying this shit for weeks. They turned something that was so stupid into something that is 100% the most over thing in the company. It's not only the most over thing in the entirety of AEW right now, but it's literally the most over thing in all of wrestling so far, really. You know, the only thing that's kind of on par with Adam Cole and MJF is the overness of LA Knight. LA Knight is just so fucking popular with the audience. If anything, he's the top merch seller in WWE. I believe he topped Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. Yeah, LA Knight. LA Knight is super over the way Adam Cole and MJF are super over with the audience. The crowd was 100% invested. When they would scream double clothesline to one another, the crowd would chant with them, double clothesline. Bro, they got over a double clothesline. If they got over a double clothesline, they are doing something right. Clearly doing something right. The double clothesline is the most simplest fucking move you could ever think of. And they just made it work. And that's all that matters sometimes. But the crowd was 100% invested. Dax and Cole start. We get a side headlock takeover by Adam Cole. Then we get a side headlock by Dax. We get a series of chops by Dax. We then get a shoulder tackle. We get a cover into 1 count. Later on, we get an enziguri by Cole. Then both Adam Cole and MJF scream at each other. Double clothesline. And then Dax holds on to Cash. But what happens is MJF makes the tag. But MJF retreats to the outside. and does his strut. Dax tags in. Dax and MJF fight it out. MJF misses an elbow drop, and then we get a shoulder tackle by Dax. We then get a slam by Dax, and then we get a slam by MJF. Again, MJF misses the elbow drop. We then get a leapfrog by MJF. MJF at this point sells his knee. MJF then tricks Dax, and he almost applies the sharpshooter, but both men push each other, and we get a series of slaps and strikes. Both teams proceed to argue with one another and beat the living shit out of each other. Once we're back from commercial break, Dax is in control over MJF. Dax applies, or tries to apply, I should say, the sharpshooter, but instead MJF gouges the eyes of Dax and also Cash. MJF then tries to tag in Cole, but FTR hold him off. But MJF, of course, counters FTR with the double DDT, which looked amazing. MJF rolls through. Cole tags in, goes after FTR. We get a series of back elbows by Cole, followed by a pump kick. He picks up Cash. Cash goes for a series of elbows, but then we get a pump kick again by Adam Cole. Cole ends up going for the Ushigoroshi. We get a cover into near fall. Dax tags in. We get a backstabber by Cole on Cash Wheeler. Then he rolls up Dax, but we get a near fall. Then we get a crossbody by Dax. And we get another cover into near fall. Dax after that goes for a high crossbody, but Adam Cole counters into a super kick. And then we get a cover into kick out. Cole and MJF once again scream double clothesline, and you could tell, once again, the crowd just fucking loves the double clothesline. But unfortunately, they miss it. MJF takes Dax for a tombstone pile driver. Cash reverses it, and it looks like he's going to go for the tombstone pile driver. And then we get a super kick by Adam, a roll-up by MJF, and a near fall. Cole goes for his basically own version of the super kick party. Cole super kicks Cash, and then we get a tombstone by MJF, and we get a cover and another near fall. Then later on in the match, we get a roll-up by Cash, and we get a near fall. A lariat by Cash on Cole. He drives Cole into the corner and to the top. FTR goes to the second rope. Cole fights off FTR, but then Cole later comes in. Dax goes to the top, and FTR, they go for the Powerplex. We get a cover on Cole and a near fall. MJF tags in. He faces off with Dax, knowing the history that both Dax and MJF have in the Pinnacle. And what happens is both men go for a series of exchanges. We get a series of chops on Dax, but then MJF pokes the eyes of Dax. MJF reverses for the pile driver, and we get a roll-up by MJF and a near fall. After that, we get a backslide countered by MJF. Dax picks up MJF for a slingshot Liger bomb after that. We get a cover and another near fall. MJF then goes for what it looked like a low blow on Dax in the corner. And we get a cover and a near fall when Cash makes the save. We then get a super kick on Cash, and then Cole runs into an uppercut. Cole is on the middle rope. They set up the big rig, a.k.a. the Shatter Machine. But then MJF takes the Shatter Machine, pushing away Adam Cole so he can save Adam Cole. And what happens is Dax goes for the roll-up, and he pins the AEW World Champion. And FTR retain the AEW Tag Team titles. After the match, FTR shake their hands with Adam Cole, but not MJF. MJF, after getting pinned by Dax, gets pissed at himself. Not Adam Cole. He gets mad at himself because he knew he failed the match. And what happens is Adam Cole gets his AEW World Championship belt now. Of course, last week on Blood and Guts, Adam Cole had the belt, and he was just going to simply hand it to MJF, in which he did. But before that, MJF saw that Adam Cole had the belt, and MJF, his ego, was like, this guy's going to take my shit. But this was different. Adam Cole grabs the belt, and he gives it to MJF. And what happens is Adam Cole, I don't want to say motivates MJF, but Adam Cole's like, bro, it was not your fault. It was both of our faults. We both messed up, but you know what? We're still a tag team. And you can tell Adam Cole is just being serious towards MJF, but MJF is just killing himself. He's beating himself up. We rarely get to see that by MJF. We rarely get to see that side of MJF. And what happens is Adam Cole turns away after giving MJF the belt. And the camera pans with Adam Cole into the corner and MJF across the ring behind Adam Cole with the AEW World Championship. And what happens is MJF has the belt, and from what it looks like, the way MJF is positioning himself, he's about to hit Adam Cole with the AEW title. But Adam Cole, in this sense, does not look stupid. Usually when it comes to these types of scenarios in wrestling, the babyface would kind of look stupid if it was just a heel. Knowing you, the viewer, that he's going to turn on him, the heel would like turn on the babyface. It'd make the babyface look stupid. Adam Cole was not stupid in this scenario. They made it as if Adam Cole kind of sensed, knowing the actual person MJF is, he is going to fucking hit him in the back. And Adam Cole's like, you know what? Do it. He pulls his arms up and he's like, do it. Just hit me with the belt. Do it. But MJF in the background, the camera pans with Adam Cole in the corner and MJF in the background, almost hitting Adam Cole. But what happens is MJF does not do it. MJF does not hit Adam Cole with the AEW World Championship. He does not. And what happens is MJF is just like, shit, what am I supposed to do, man? He's like the only friends that I have in my fucking life. And both men hug it out. And the crowd goes fucking ballistic. They go crazy over both men hugging it out. This is on Bloodline levels. You know how the Bloodline, whenever a big moment would happen, like Sami Zayn hitting Roman with the chair at the Royal Rumble, the crowd in the Alamo Dome popped for that. Or when, of course, Jey Uso, you thinking that Jey Uso and Sami Zayn were on the same page and they both hugged it out, the crowd popped, but then, of course, you had Jey Uso super kick Sami Zayn. Or when Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn looked at each other and they both hugged it out, the crowd went absolutely apeshit. This was on that level. And it was fucking beautiful to see. They hug it out. The crowd goes fucking crazy. And Adam Cole and MJF are not splitting anytime soon. And Collision ends. Okay. The match itself was phenomenal. But the real story, of course, going into this match was what is going to happen with Adam Cole and MJF. AEW had a very, very, very complex and difficult situation, and they needed to make a decision, and they needed to react quick. Do we have MJF turn on Adam Cole tonight and call it a day and just go on with the feud, knowing that this shit is getting super over with the audience? The merchandise sales are through the roof when it comes to this pairing. Instead of doing that, AEW was like, no, fuck that. We're going to go Sami Zayn on this, and we're going to go long-term with this storyline. I don't know how long they're going to be paired together. And we do not know what MJF is going to be doing in Wembley. We all know Wembley Stadium is just 4 weeks away. It's not that far off. Could we be seeing MJF turning on Adam Cole, before Wembley? Could we be seeing MJF turning on Adam Cole at Wembley Stadium? Or at All Out? Who knows? Or what if they go, again, far beyond All In and far beyond All Out? What if they are a legitimate tag team? I know that sounds a little bit far off, but this pairing with Adam Cole and MJF gives me Sami Zayn Bloodline vibes. In the sense that, again, it is a stupid scenario that just worked. And instead of just killing it off directly, the promotion and the promoters looked at this and they were like, you know what? If this story is working, I'm going to keep this shit on TV in order to make a bigger blow off. Because once the turn happens, if you go long term when it comes to, for example, Adam Cole and MJF, once the turn happens eventually, because you know it's going to happen, it's not a matter of if it will happen. It's a matter of when. We all know a turn is going to be happening. But the beauty of it is if you go long term with the story that you're telling, the impact when the actual turn happens is going to be much greater for it. And whoever turns on who is going to be such a mega heel. And whoever, of course, gets turned on, that sounded fucking wrong, but whoever, of course, gets betrayed, they're going to end up a bigger babyface for it. But AEW really needs to be smart when they do the turn. Now, they definitely set the stage when it came to the turn and the reaction that Adam Cole could possibly get. The way that they did it was phenomenal with Adam Cole. They did not make Adam Cole look stupid. That was the biggest concern on a lot of people's, minds. Once MJF turns on Adam Cole's just going to look dumb. No. Adam Cole knows the type of person MJF is. They already set the tone for that. So we don't have to worry about that anymore. This has been great. How long has this been going on? This hasn't even gone on for like a month. And this has been amazing. This is literally the best thing on AEW TV across both Dynamite and Collision so far. Like, seriously, this is the best thing on AEW TV. We got Adam Cole and MJF on the same page. And who knows? What if we get a rematch with FTR and they eventually win the tag team titles? I don't know, man. And we got Punk as the real world champion. So, if anything, MJF doesn't really need to defend his title at all in or all out, considering Punk has his own world title. It's not official, but he could easily defend that title, and that could be your world championship match. There's many ways that you could go with this, but I do believe AEW is definitely going long-term with this. And I think that's the right decision to make. They teased a match with CM Punk and MJF, which we will be getting, but I doubt it's going to be at Wembley. My prediction is that that's going to be at the end of the year because it makes more sense with the winter of MJF being his own version of the summer of Punk with the bidding war of 2024. It all lines up. But this gives something for MJF to do, but MJF is literally working this so well. A lot of people talk about sports entertainment and professional wrestling. I used to be the type of person that would always say professional wrestling is better than sports entertainment, or I would always differentiate the two concepts. At the end of the day, throughout these past couple of years, I've come to the realization that pro wrestling and sports entertainment is basically the same thing. It's the same thing. We don't have to compare, sports entertainment, professional wrestling. Look, professional wrestling is entertainment at the end of the day. I just don't like the fact that WWE uses the terminology sports entertainment because if you look at it from a kayfabe perspective, even though everybody knows it's not real, sports entertainment, just kind of sounds wrong. And usually when it comes to a casual viewer, they're not going to call it sports entertainment. They're going to call it professional wrestling or just wrestling in general. But I digress. This was great. The entertainment aspect was great. It's one of those storylines in which you are super entertained by it, but the emotion once the turn ends up happening, it's going to be fucking heartbreaking. That is exactly how I felt with Sami Zayn and the Bloodline. I'm feeling Sami Zayn Bloodline levels with Adam Cole and MJF. I know that's a little far-fetched, but if you really compare the two, they're not so different after all at the end of the day. But those are my thoughts on the main event. Adam Cole and MJF unfortunately lose, but they are still on the same page. Yeah, that was my AEW Collision review from July 29th, 2023. Overall thoughts on the show, I thought this was a phenomenal show. This was definitely a pay-per-view quality AEW Collision in my opinion. Everything about this from top to bottom was phenomenal. Of course, we had the ladder match, the main event, which is the biggest talking point, CM Punk. The CM Punk and Ricky Stark segment, phenomenal stuff. I enjoyed it. It was great. And clearly Collision is the A show. Say what you want about the ratings. I don't give a shit what the ratings are. If you look at it from a creative perspective, Collision is clearly the A show right now in AEW. Not to say Dynamite is bad every week, because it's a very good show in most weeks. It's literally one of my favorite wrestling show of the week. But Collision, I think it's starting to take that spot. But yeah, that was my AEW Collision review from July 29th, 2023. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications, and be on the lookout for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the friggin' referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And as always, it is Flamin' Ricky DeRays, signing out. I'll see you guys later for the SmackDown review. Peace.